Emily Shaw had perfected the art of being nobody by the time she was 16. It was easier than most people thought. Keep your hair simple, your makeup minimal, your voice soft. Smile like you mean it, but never laugh too loud. Be helpful without being memorable. Move through spaces like furniture, necessary but unnoticed. At 24, she'd turned invisibility into a career. Rossi's Fine Dining was her stage, and she performed the same role 6 nights a week. The quiet waitress who never complained, never gossiped, never caused problems. The one managers loved because she picked up extra shifts and customers forgot the moment she left their table. Perfect. That's what Emily thought until the night Franco Ricci walked through the doors. Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, like the video and share with loved ones, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now let's begin. The restaurant had a rhythm Emily had learned by heart. The 6 p.m. rush, the 8 p.m. lull, the late-night stragglers nursing expensive cognac. She could read the room like sheet music, anticipate needs before they arose, disappear before gratitude required a response. She was refilling water glasses when the temperature changed. It was hard to explain if you'd never felt it. That shift in atmosphere when someone truly dangerous entered a space. Not movie dangerous. Real dangerous. The kind that made smart people check exit routes and keep their heads down. Vincent, the maitre d', straightened his already perfect tie and moved toward the entrance with the kind of deference usually reserved for visiting dignitaries. Emily glanced up and saw him. He wore power like most men wear cologne, subtle but unmistakable. Mid-30s, Italian heritage written in every line of his face, dressed in a suit that cost more than her car. But it was the way he moved that caught her attention. Controlled. Deliberate. Like a man who'd learned long ago that wasted motion was wasted opportunity. Franco Ricci. Even his name sounded like expensive Italian leather. Beside him walked a woman who had to be his mother. Silver hair, emerald dress, the kind of elegant beauty that age refines rather than diminishes. She touched his arm occasionally, orienting herself to the space, and Emily realized. She was deaf. Emily watched her try to get a server's attention as they passed table 12. Her hands moved in subtle, practiced gestures. The server, Michael, smiled blankly and kept walking. Emily's chest tightened with familiar anger. Vincent appeared at her station. Table 12 needs service. Marcus just called in sick, so you're taking over his section. Vincent. They're VIPs, Emily. Very important that nothing goes wrong. His voice carried a warning she'd learned to recognize. The Riccis don't visit often, but when they do, we treat them like royalty. Understand? Emily understood more than he knew. She approached the table with her standard professional smile, menu in hand, and did what she always did, made herself invisible while being present. But then Signora Ricci's hands moved again, this time in a question directed at no one and everyone. Could someone please tell me what the evening specials are? She wasn't using ASL. She was using Italian Sign Language, the southern dialect Emily's father had taught her before the world fell apart. Emily didn't think. She just responded. Good evening, Signora, she signed, setting the menu down gently. Our chef is featuring branzino in acqua pazza and handmade corsetti with pesto alla genovese. May I describe them for you? The older woman's eyes lit up like someone had handed her a gift she'd stopped hoping for. Oh! Her hands danced with excitement. Oh, how wonderful. Finally, someone who can speak properly. She launched into rapid signing, telling Emily about her hometown near Sorrento, asking about her family, complimenting her fluency. Emily answered on autopilot, years of practice taking over, and forgot about the restaurant, the other customers, the man sitting across from his mother, until his hand appeared in her peripheral vision, moving to stop his mother mid-sign. Emily looked at Franco Ricci. He was staring at her like she'd just performed an impossible magic trick, his dark eyes sharp with intelligence and something else. Suspicion or recognition, she couldn't tell which. You sign, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir. That specific dialect. Emily nodded. Where? The single word carried weight. Around them, she became aware that the restaurant had gone quiet. Other diners were watching. Servers had paused in their routes. Even the sommelier stood frozen mid-pour at table 8. My father, Emily said simply. He was deaf. Franco's expression didn't change, but something in his posture did. A subtle shift, like a predator catching an unexpected scent. He passed away. She kept her voice steady. When I was 12. I'm so sorry, dear, his mother signed, her face full of genuine sympathy. What was his name? The question landed like a trap Emily had walked into blindly. Because the truth would connect dots she'd spent 12 years keeping separate. But lying to someone who'd just shared such genuine warmth felt wrong in ways she couldn't name. Daniel, she said aloud while signing. Daniel Shaw. Franco went completely still. His mother continued happily. And you learned this beautiful dialect from him? How wonderful that you keep his language alive. But Franco's attention had sharpened to a razor's edge. He signed something to his mother. Too fast for Emily to catch entirely. Something about needing to check a message. Then, to Emily in English. What's your last name? Shaw. Just Shaw. No middle name, no. Emily Rose Shaw, she said, holding his gaze even as her heart hammered. Is there a problem, Mr. Ricci? For a long moment, he simply studied her. Then, slowly, he reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. His thumbs moved over the screen, and Emily saw him pause, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. Whatever he'd found, it meant something. No problem, he said finally, sliding the phone away. Just curious. It's rare to meet someone with your particular skill set. His mother, oblivious to the undercurrent, signed enthusiastically. Emily, you must join us for coffee after your shift. I have so many stories to share, and it's been years since I've had a proper conversation with someone who understands. Mama, Franco said softly, switching to sign, perhaps another time. I'm sure Emily has plans. I don't actually, Emily said before she could stop herself. What was she doing? I'd be honored, Signora. Franco's eyes met hers again, and this time there was no mistaking what she saw. Warning. Wonderful. His mother clapped her hands together. We'll wait for you. Don't rush, take your time. As Emily walked back to the service station, her hands were trembling, because she'd recognized the look on Franco Ricci's face. She'd seen it once before, in the eyes of the man who'd stood over her father's body 12 years ago and told 10-year-old Emily that some secrets were worth dying for, and that she should forget everything she'd seen. The coffee shop Franco chose was quiet, expensive, and nearly empty at 11 p.m. Emily sat across from him and his mother in a leather booth that probably cost more than her monthly rent, hands wrapped around a cappuccino she hadn't touched. Signora Ricci was animated, signing stories about her childhood in Sorrento, the lemon groves, and the way the Mediterranean looked at sunset. Emily responded when appropriate, smiled at the right moments, but she felt Franco's attention like heat against her skin. He hadn't said much since they'd left Rossi's. Just watched. Studied her the way someone examines a painting they suspect might be forged. When his mother excused herself to the restroom, the silence between them shifted. You're nervous, Franco said quietly. Not a question. I'm fine. Your hands haven't stopped moving since we sat down. Small gestures. Self-soothing. He tilted his head slightly. Who taught you to do that? Hide anxiety in plain sight. Emily forced herself to still. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. He leaned forward, forearms on the table. Let me ask you something, Emily Shaw. Where exactly did you learn that dialect of sign language? I told you. My father. Your father. Franco's voice remained soft, but something dangerous moved beneath it. Daniel Shaw. Deaf interpreter. Died 12 years ago in Chicago. He paused. That's what the police report says. Mugging gone wrong. Case closed. Emily's throat tightened. You looked me up. I look everyone up who gets close to my mother. It's not personal. His dark eyes held hers. Except in your case, it might be. I don't understand. That dialect you used tonight, Neapolitan Italian Sign Language, Southern variant, it's nearly extinct. Maybe a few dozen people still know it. He spoke with careful precision, as if choosing each word mattered. My sister Lucia was one of them. She taught it at a university in Naples before she moved back to the States. Something cold settled in Emily's stomach. She was going to write a book preserving it. Record the last native speakers, document the grammar, the cultural context. Franco's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She died before she could finish. 10 years ago. I'm sorry, Emily said softly, and meant it. Are you? His gaze never wavered. Because that dialect didn't die with her. Someone else knew it. Someone taught it to you with enough fluency that my mother, who grew up signing it, couldn't tell the difference. Emily's mind raced. Her father had taught her, yes. But he'd learned it from somewhere. Someone. He'd never said who. My father collected recordings, she said carefully. Old videos, teaching materials. He was obsessive about preserving dying languages. Was he obsessive? Or was he hiding something? The question landed like a physical blow. Before Emily could respond, Signora Ricci returned, signing cheerfully. I just had the loveliest conversation with the barista. She's learning ASL for her daughter. Isn't that wonderful? Franco switched seamlessly back to warmth, signing his agreement, asking his mother if she was ready to leave. But as they stood, the older woman took Emily's hands in hers. You remind me so much of my Lucia, she signed, her eyes bright with emotion. The way you move your hands, the expressions you make. It's like having a piece of her back. Emily felt Franco tense beside her. That's very kind of you, Signora, she signed back. Your daughter sounds like she was an extraordinary person. She was. The older woman's smile turned wistful. Franco misses her terribly, though he pretends he doesn't. You should come to dinner at our home. Thursday. I'll make osso buco, and you can tell me more about your father's collection. Mama, Franco said gently aloud. Emily might be busy. I'd love to, Emily heard herself say. Why was she agreeing to this? What was wrong with her? Signora Ricci beamed. Franco's expression remained carefully neutral, but Emily caught the flicker of something in his eyes. Warning, or challenge. As they left the coffee shop, Franco handed her a card, black, minimalist, just a phone number embossed in silver. If you remember anything else about where your father learned that dialect, he said quietly, call me. Immediately. Why does it matter so much? His hand brushed hers as he took the card back, wrote something on the back, then returned it. Because people who knew that dialect have a habit of dying violently. And I'd prefer my mother not lose another person she cares about. The words hung between them as he helped his mother into a waiting black car. Emily stood on the sidewalk and watched them drive away, the city humming around her. The next 3 shifts at Rossi's felt different. Emily noticed things she'd trained herself not to see. The way conversations paused when she passed certain tables. How Vincent watched her with an expression that might have been concern or calculation. The 2 men in expensive suits who came in separately but sat within view of each other, ordering drinks they barely touched. Her coworkers noticed the change too. So, Carla said during their break, voice carefully casual, you made quite an impression on the Ricci family. His mother was nice. His mother is lovely. It's everyone else in that family you need to worry about. Carla lit a cigarette, even though they weren't supposed to smoke back here. You know what they say about the Riccis, right? Emily didn't answer. No one survives long around them. Not enemies, not friends, not even family. Carla exhaled smoke into the night air. That boy's father? Died in a car accident 5 years ago. His sister? Murdered. His uncle? Heart attack at 42. His cousin? Disappeared. She ticked them off on her fingers like a grocery list. And those are just the relatives. You want to hear about the business partners? The lawyers? The accountants who ask too many questions? Carla, I'm just saying, sweetheart. You're sweet. You keep your head down. Don't let them pull you into whatever they've got going on. She stubbed out her cigarette. Franco Ricci might be gorgeous and rich and charming when he wants to be, but men like him? They're dangerous even when they're trying to be good. Emily thought about that as she finished her shift. About the way Franco had looked at her in the coffee shop, like she was a puzzle he needed to solve before she became a threat. About the warning in his voice when he'd said people who knew that dialect tended to die violently. At 2 a.m., she finally clocked out. The night manager, Rick, handed her an envelope with her name written in elegant script across the front. "Someone left this for you," he said. Delivery guy came by around midnight. Inside, she found a handwritten note on heavy cardstock. "Thank you for your kindness to my mother. She hasn't smiled like that in years. Please accept this as a token of our gratitude. Fr." Beneath it, 5 crisp $100 bills. Emily stared at the money, then at the note. The handwriting was controlled, precise, with just enough flourish to suggest education and old money. She ran her finger over the embossed initials at the bottom of the card. This was too much. Way too much for simply signing with someone at dinner. Unless it wasn't gratitude at all. Unless it was something else. A test. Or a payment. Or... Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "My mother wants you to bring your father's recordings to dinner Thursday. Whatever you have. She's excited to see them. F." Emily's hands trembled as she typed back. "I don't have them anymore. Lost in a move years ago." The response came immediately. Convenient. Then, "Come anyway. 7 p.m. I'll send a car." She should say no. Should block the number, quit Rossi's, maybe leave Chicago entirely. Instead, she texted, "I can drive myself. The car is safer. Trust me." Emily shoved her phone in her pocket and pushed through the back door into the alley where she parked. The October air had turned cold. Her breath misted in front of her face as she walked toward her beat-up Honda, keys already in hand. That's when she noticed it. A black sedan, parked across the street. Engine off, headlights dark. But someone sat in the driver's seat, just a silhouette against the glow of distant streetlights. Watching. Emily's heart kicked into overdrive. She kept walking, forced herself not to run, got into her car with hands that shook so badly she dropped her keys twice. When she finally started the engine and pulled out of the alley, the sedan's headlights flicked on. It followed her home. Not close, never close enough to be obvious. But it was there at every turn, maintaining the same distance, disappearing only when she pulled into her apartment complex parking lot. Emily sat in her car for 10 minutes, watching the street, before she finally got out and ran to her building. Inside her apartment, she locked the door, threw the deadbolt, dragged a chair under the handle. Then she went to the window and carefully lifted the edge of the curtain. The black sedan was parked down the street. Headlights off. Engine running, exhaust visible in the cold air. Still watching. Emily let the curtain fall and reached for her phone. Franco's number was already in her recent calls. Her thumb hovered over it. People who knew that dialect have a habit of dying violently. She set the phone down. Whatever was happening, whoever was out there, calling Franco Ricci for help would be like asking the wolf to protect you from the darkness. When she wasn't entirely sure the wolf wasn't part of the darkness to begin with. Emily almost called in sick Wednesday night. She'd spent the previous day checking her locks obsessively, peering through her blinds every 30 minutes, jumping at shadows. The black sedan had disappeared by morning, but the fear hadn't. It sat in her chest like a stone, heavy and cold. But rent was due in a week, and her savings account laughed at the idea of covering emergencies. So she put on her uniform, braided her hair, and drove to Rossi's with her rearview mirror checked more than the road ahead. The restaurant felt different tonight. Or maybe she was different, and everything else just looked sharper because of it. Vincent greeted her at the staff entrance with his usual clipboard and disapproving frown. "Table 12 again. They requested you specifically." Emily's stomach dropped. "The Ricci's. Is there a problem?" "Yes." "No. Everything." "No problem." "Good. They're already seated." He checked his watch. "And Emily? Whatever you did to impress them, keep doing it. VIP clients like that are worth their weight in gold." If only he knew what they were actually worth. Emily gathered her order pad and wound through the dining room, past tables of couples celebrating anniversaries and business dinners sealed with expensive wine. The crystal chandeliers cast their usual golden glow, the piano player filled the air with soft jazz, and everything looked exactly as it should. Except for table 12. Franco sat with his back to the wall again, wearing charcoal gray tonight instead of black. His mother was radiant in deep blue, already smiling when she spotted Emily approaching. Emily. Signora Ricci's hands moved with genuine delight. I was hoping you'd be working tonight. I've been thinking about our conversation all week. It's good to see you both again, Emily signed back, forcing warmth she didn't quite feel. Not with Franco watching her like she was evidence in a crime he hadn't solved yet. My mother's been talking about you non-stop, Franco said, his voice carrying that same controlled courtesy that somehow felt more dangerous than anger. She's very excited about Thursday's dinner. About that, Emily started. You're not canceling. Not a question. Signora Ricci looked between them, confused, then signed to Emily. Is everything all right, dear? You seem tense. Just a long day. Emily signed back with a smile she didn't feel. Well, we'll try not to keep you too busy tonight. Just some wine and the chicken piccata for me. The older woman's hands moved with easy grace. And whatever makes you smile again. You have such a lovely smile when it's real. The observation hit harder than it should have. Emily took their orders. Chicken piccata for Signora Ricci, the lamb for Franco, and escaped back to the service station. Her hands were shaking again. She pressed them flat against the counter, breathing slowly, trying to center herself. You okay? She looked up to find Carla watching her with concern. Fine. Just tired. Right. Carla didn't sound convinced. Well, try to keep it together. Vincent's already on edge tonight. Apparently there was some kind of threat called in earlier, but he won't tell us the details. Emily's blood went cold. What kind of threat? No idea. But there's 2 extra security guys by the kitchen, and Marcus said he saw Vincent arguing with someone on the phone about whether to close early. Carla shrugged. Probably nothing. Rich people drama. Probably. Emily delivered wine to table 12, trying to ignore the way Franco's eyes tracked her every movement. She poured for Signora Ricci first, then for him, and the whole time she felt like prey being studied by something patient and predatory. Relax, he said quietly as she set the bottle down. You look like you're about to run. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. His voice dropped lower. Whatever scared you, you can tell me. Emily met his eyes. Can I? Something flickered in his expression, surprise maybe, or recognition. Before he could respond, his mother touched his hand, signing a question about the wine. Emily retreated. The dinner rush built around her in waves. She served appetizers, cleared plates, smiled at tables who didn't see her. The familiar rhythm should have calmed her, but everything felt wrong tonight. Too loud, too bright, like the moment before a storm breaks. She was refilling water at table 7 when she noticed him. A man at the bar. Mid-40s, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit right. He wasn't drinking, just holding a glass of scotch he hadn't touched, staring at it like it held answers to questions he was afraid to ask. His leg bounced. His jaw clenched and unclenched. Sweat beaded at his temples despite the restaurant's perfect climate control. Emily had seen that look before. The night her father died, in the faces of the men who'd stood in the shadows while. The man's lips moved. One word, barely a whisper, but Emily had learned to read lips when she'd learned to sign. Now, her body reacted before her mind caught up. She was already turning toward table 12, her hands already moving, signing to Signora Ricci. Down! Get down! The older woman's eyes went wide, but she didn't hesitate. Years of trusting her son's instincts had taught her to act first and question later. Franco saw his mother drop and moved purely on instinct, pulling her fully beneath the table. The gunshot came a heartbeat later. The mirror behind table 12 exploded in a shower of glass and silver fragments. Someone screamed. The piano music cut off mid-note. Emily hit the floor as chaos erupted around her. More screams, the crash of breaking dishes, chairs scraping as people dove for cover. Another shot fired, this one hitting the wall where Franco's head had been seconds before. She couldn't see the shooter. Couldn't see anything except the white tablecloth above her and the scattered crystal from someone's dropped wine glass catching the chandelier light like blood. Then Franco was there, crawling toward her under the tables, his eyes dark and fierce. "Stay down," he ordered. Not gentle. Command voice. The voice of someone used to being obeyed. "Your mother is safe. Stay down." A third shot shattered the window. Cold October air rushed in. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Then silence. Terrible, ringing silence broken only by sobbing and the crunch of glass under shoes. Franco rose slowly, scanning the room with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this before. His hand was inside his jacket, where Emily would bet money he kept a gun, but he didn't draw it. The shooter was gone. The police arrived in force, uniformed officers, detectives, crime scene techs with cameras and evidence bags. They separated diners into groups, took statements, asked the same questions in different ways. Emily sat in a chair by the kitchen, wrapped in someone's jacket because she couldn't stop shivering. A detective whose name she'd already forgotten was asking about what she'd seen. "Nothing," she said for the third time. I saw someone drop something. I thought it was a gun. I panicked." "But you warned the Ricci family specifically. They were the closest table." The detective's eyes narrowed. "You signed to Mrs. Ricci. You speak sign language." "Yes. And you just happened to sign get down a second before someone started shooting at their table." Emily forced herself to meet his gaze. Lucky instinct. He didn't believe her. She could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way he wrote something in his notebook with more force than necessary. Before he could press further, Vincent appeared, his face red with barely controlled anger. "Emily. My office. Now." The detective looked annoyed but stepped aside. Emily followed Vincent through the kitchen, past prep cooks who whispered and stared, into the cramped office that smelled of stale coffee and stress. Vincent slammed the door. "What the hell were you thinking?" He didn't shout. Somehow that was worse. Making a scene like that. Causing panic. "Do you have any idea what this does to the restaurant's reputation? Someone was shooting. Someone fired shots because of some gang nonsense that has nothing to do with us. And you turned it into a spectacle by screaming and throwing yourself on the floor like we're in some action movie." His hands clenched into fists. "I've gotten 3 calls from corporate in the last hour. 3. They're talking about closing us down for a safety review. I was trying to help. You were trying to be a hero, and you cost me everything." Vincent's voice finally rose. "You're done. Collect your things and get out." The words hit like a physical blow. "You're firing me? What did you expect? You're a liability. You." The office door opened without a knock. Franco Ricci stood in the doorway, and the temperature in the tiny room plummeted. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," he said quietly. Vincent's anger drained into pale fear. "Mr. Ricci, I'm so sorry about what happened tonight. We take your safety very seriously." "Good." Franco stepped inside, and suddenly the office felt impossibly small. "Then you'll understand that Emily Shaw saved my mother's life tonight. She saw the threat before anyone else. She acted while everyone else froze." His dark eyes fixed on Vincent with surgical precision. "That makes her the only competent employee in this building." "Sir, I appreciate that, but protocol. Protocol says you protect your VIP clients at all costs." Franco's voice never rose, never hardened, but something lethal moved beneath it. "Emily is now under my family's protection. That means she keeps her job, she keeps her tips, and nobody questions her actions tonight. Is that understood?" Vincent swallowed hard. Yes. Of course. Understood." "Excellent." Franco turned to Emily. "A word outside?" It wasn't a request. Emily followed him through the kitchen, past the police still processing the dining room, out into the back alley where she'd parked. The October night had turned bitter, her breath misting in the air. Franco stopped near her car, then turned to face her. "You saw it before it happened," he said. "That's not coincidence. That's not lucky instinct." He stepped closer. You read his lips. You knew he was about to fire. Emily's throat tightened. "I saw him reach. Don't lie to me." His voice remained soft, but his eyes were hard. "Someone's been following you. Someone's been watching my family. And tonight, someone tried to kill my mother." He paused. "3 connections that all lead back to you. I don't know what you're talking about." "Then let me be clear." Franco pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. The man from the bar, now in a police body bag. Dead before the cops could question him. Single gunshot to the back of the head, execution style. Professional. He pocketed the phone. "Whoever sent him isn't done. They'll come after you next because you can identify him. Or they already know who you are." Emily's hands were shaking again. She shoved them in her pockets. "I can protect you," Franco said. "My home is secure. My people are loyal. You'll be safe there until we figure out what's happening." "No." His eyebrows rose slightly. "No. I don't know you. I don't trust you." Emily forced the words out even though her whole body screamed at her to say yes, to accept safety from someone who looked like he could deliver it. "For all I know, you're the reason someone's shooting." Something flashed in Franco's eyes, respect maybe, or surprise. "Fair enough. But you're not safe alone. I'll manage. Will you?" He pulled a card from his pocket, different from the last one, with an address written on the back. "When they come for you, and they will, call me, day or night. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning, or if you just have a feeling something's wrong. Call." Emily took the card because refusing felt more dangerous than accepting. Franco stepped back, hands in his pockets, looking at her like he was memorizing her face. "My mother would never forgive me if something happened to you. So please, be smart." Then he walked away, leaving Emily alone in the alley with a pocket full of business cards and the taste of fear sharp on her tongue. She drove home checking her mirrors every 30 seconds. No black sedan. No obvious tails. But that didn't mean anything anymore. She'd learned tonight that danger didn't always announce itself. Sometimes it looked like a nervous man at a bar. Sometimes it wore expensive suits and called itself protection. Her apartment looked undisturbed. Same locks, same deadbolt, same chair she'd wedged under the door handle that morning. Emily moved through her nightly routine on autopilot. Shower, pajamas, tea she wouldn't drink. She sat on her couch in the dark, watching the street through a crack in the curtains, and tried to convince herself she'd be fine. At 2 a.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You should have accepted his offer. Now it's too late. Emily's blood turned to ice. Another text. Your father talked too much. Don't make his mistake. She stared at the screen until it went dark, then sat frozen in the silence of her apartment, every shadow suddenly threatening. A sound in the hallway made her heart stop. Soft. Barely there. Paper sliding under her door. Emily forced herself to move. Forced herself to cross the room on legs that felt like water. She stood for a full minute, staring at the folded piece of paper on her floor, before she finally bent to pick it up. Block letters, written in black marker. Keep quiet or you're next. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. Emily grabbed her phone, pulled up Franco's number. Her thumb hovered over the call button. Outside her window, a car engine started. She ran to the window in time to see a dark sedan, maybe black, maybe navy, too dark to tell, pulling away from the curb. Franco had been right. They were coming for her. And she was completely, terrifyingly alone. Emily didn't call Franco that night. Or the next morning. Or the morning after that. She went to work at Rossi's because not going felt like admitting defeat. Because routine was armor, and she'd worn it successfully for 12 years. Because the alternative was sitting in her apartment, staring at that note, waiting for the next threat to arrive. Thursday evening, she was setting up her section when she felt him before she saw him. Franco stood near the hostess stand, hands in the pockets of his black overcoat, looking like he'd walked straight out of a film about beautiful, dangerous men. His eyes found hers across the dining room, and there was no warmth in them, just cold assessment. He crossed the space between them with deliberate purpose. "You didn't call," he said quietly. "I'm fine. You're not." His gaze traveled over her face, cataloging details she couldn't hide. The shadows under her eyes from 2 nights without real sleep. The way her hands trembled slightly as she gripped her order pad. "Get your things. You're coming with me." "I'm working." "Not anymore." He glanced toward Vincent, who stood near the bar watching them with poorly concealed anxiety. "Your manager and I have already discussed it. You're taking a few days off. Paid." Emily's jaw tightened. "You can't just." "I can, and I did." Franco's voice remained soft, but steel ran through it. "We can do this easy, or we can do this in front of your coworkers. Your choice." She wanted to refuse. Wanted to tell him to leave, that she didn't need his protection or his money or whatever game he was playing. But her apartment had been quiet last night. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made every sound feel like a threat. And this morning, she'd found a new scratch on her car door, thin, deliberate, shaped almost like a warning. "Fine," she said. "Let me get my coat." Franco's car was exactly what she'd expected. Black, sleek, expensive enough that Emily was afraid to touch anything. A driver she didn't recognize held the door open, his face professionally blank. They drove in silence through downtown Chicago, the city lights blurring past the tinted windows. Emily watched the streets she knew disappear behind them, replaced by neighborhoods where buildings rose like glass monuments to wealth. The penthouse was on the 40th floor of a building that probably cost more per month than Emily would earn in her lifetime. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, modern furniture arranged with the kind of casual perfection that came from hiring designers who charged by the hour. Franco shrugged off his coat and tossed it over a chair. "Drink?" "No. Thank you." He poured himself scotch anyway, neat, in a crystal glass that caught the ambient lighting. For a long moment, he just stood there, looking at her like he was deciding something. "You want to know why I brought you here?" he finally said. "To explain why someone's threatening me? To show you why." He set down his glass and walked to a bookshelf, pulled out what looked like a photo album. "My sister kept detailed records. Photos, journals, correspondence. After she died, I couldn't look at them for years." He opened the album carefully, like it might break. "Then I started investigating what really happened to her." He turned the album toward Emily. The photograph showed a young woman in her late 20s, dark hair pulled back, holding a baby wrapped in a yellow blanket. The woman was signing something to the camera, her face radiant with joy. Lucia Ricci. It had to be. "This was taken 24 years ago," Franco said quietly. 3 months before Lucia left for the States. She was working in Naples, teaching at the university, when she met an American interpreter. Emily's chest tightened. Franco flipped the photo over. On the back, in faded ink, the most precious gift. "Yes, May 2001. Yes." Emily Shaw. The room tilted slightly. Emily sat down hard on the nearest chair, her legs suddenly unable to hold her. "That's not," she started, but the words caught in her throat. "Possible." Franco finished. "That's what I thought too, until I started looking into your father's work history." He pulled out his phone, showed her a scanned document. Daniel Shaw, deaf interpreter. Worked international business conferences in Europe, 1999 to 2001. Primary location, Naples, Italy. Emily stared at the document, at her father's name in official typeface, and something cracked open inside her. A memory buried deep. Her mother's voice, soft and sad. "We used to live somewhere warm, baby. Somewhere with lemon trees and the ocean. But we had to leave. After your father's accident, it wasn't safe anymore." "You lived there," Franco said, reading her expression. "Didn't you?" Emily's hands were shaking. "I don't remember. I was too young." "Try." She closed her eyes. Fragments surfaced, scattered, incomplete. Bright sunlight. The smell of salt water. A woman with dark hair teaching her to sign, her hands gentle and patient. "Lucia." My mother said we left after my father's accident. Emily's voice came out barely above a whisper. She said it was sudden, that we had to go back to the States for his medical care. It wasn't an accident. Franco sat across from her, his expression carefully controlled. Your father was Lucia's interpreter. She was investigating something. I found her notes, but they were incomplete. References to the Marconi family, deals being made, money being moved. He paused. My father was involved with the Marconis then. Business partnerships that looked legitimate on paper but weren't. Emily's stomach churned. You think my father? I think your father recorded conversations he was supposed to interpret and forget. I think Lucia was helping him document evidence. And I think when the Marconis found out, they silenced both of them. Franco's jaw tightened. Lucia first, in a staged kidnapping. Your father 12 years later, when he surfaced in Chicago. No. Emily stood abruptly, backing away from him. My father died in a mugging. Random violence. That's what the police said. The police said what they were paid to say. Franco's voice remained steady, but something fierce burned beneath it. The Marconi family owns half the judges in this city and most of the cops who matter. If they wanted your father's death to look random, it would look random. Emily's mind raced, connecting pieces she'd spent 12 years keeping separate. The way her mother had moved them constantly after her father's death. The way she'd insisted Emily never mention Italy, never speak about where they'd lived before. The way her mother had looked over her shoulder in crowds, always watching, always afraid, until the cancer took her 5 years ago. Your mother knew, Franco said gently, reading her face again. She knew they'd killed him. That's why she ran. Why she kept you hidden. This is insane. Emily pressed her palms against her temples. You're telling me I'm connected to your sister's murder? That my father was a good man who tried to do the right thing. Franco stood, crossed to her slowly. And my father ordered his death to protect a business deal with the Marconis. The words landed like physical blows. Emily looked up at him, saw the guilt written in the tight set of his jaw, the shadows in his dark eyes. If my father ordered that hit, Franco said quietly, you deserve the truth. From me. All of it. He paused. I spent 5 years dismantling everything he built. Cutting ties with the Marconis, ending the dirty deals, trying to make the Ricci name mean something other than blood money. His voice dropped lower. But some debts don't disappear just because you want them to. And now the Marconis think you know something. They think your father left evidence behind. Did he? I don't know. Did he? Emily thought about her childhood. The boxes her mother kept but never opened. The external hard drive she'd found after her mother died, password protected, that Emily had never managed to crack. Maybe, she whispered. My mother left things. I never looked at them. Franco's expression sharpened. Where are they? My apartment. Storage unit. I don't remember. I haven't thought about them in years. Then we need to get them before the Marconis do. He pulled out his phone. I'm sending people to your apartment now. They'll secure everything and bring it here. You can't just. Emily. He stepped closer, and for the first time she saw something other than control in his face. Something raw. If evidence exists that connects my father to your father's murder, I need to know. Not to hide it. To make it right. His voice cracked slightly. Lucia died because of my family's choices. Your father died because of my family's choices. I can't bring them back, but I can damn sure make certain you don't become the third victim. Emily searched his face, looking for the lie, the manipulation, the hidden motive. She found only exhaustion and guilt that mirrored her own. Okay, she said finally. Okay. Franco's people were efficient. Within 2 hours, Emily's belongings arrived at the penthouse in neat boxes. Clothes, books, her laptop, and 3 sealed containers she'd inherited from her mother. Franco's security team swept everything for tracking devices. They found 2. One in her coat lining, one embedded in the spine of her favorite textbook. Emily stared at them, tiny, innocuous pieces of technology that meant someone had been in her apartment. In her things. Watching her movements for God knew how long. You're staying here tonight, Franco said. Not a question. Guest room is down the hall. Anything you need, ask. Emily nodded numbly. She went to the guest room, elegant, impersonal, safe, and sat on the bed with her mother's boxes. Inside the first, photo albums from Italy. Pictures of her as a baby, her father smiling, a dark-haired woman she now recognized as Lucia making silly faces at the camera. Inside the second, her father's old sign language textbooks, margins filled with notes in his careful handwriting. Inside the third, the external hard drive, and a letter sealed, with Emily's name written in her mother's shaking script. My darling girl, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I never told you the truth. I'm sorry I made you live in fear of shadows you didn't understand. Your father loved you more than life itself. He died protecting you. The drive contains his final recordings. Whatever you choose to do with them, know that I'm proud of you. You were always braver than both of us. Love, Mom. Emily sat in the expensive silence of Franco Ricci's guest room, holding her mother's last words, and finally let herself cry. The next morning, Emily woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. She found Franco in the kitchen, dressed casually in dark jeans and a fitted shirt, looking more human than he had in his suits. My people called, he said, sliding a cup toward her. Your apartment was broken into last night. Tossed completely. They took everything related to sign language, textbooks, notes, your father's old materials. His expression darkened. They're looking for the same thing we are. Emily wrapped her hands around the warm cup. The recordings. Yes. Franco leaned against the counter. Which means we're running out of time. Whatever your father documented, the Marconis want it buried. Permanently. Emily thought about her mother's letter. About her father's courage. About Lucia's smile in those faded photographs. Then let's find it, she said. Let's find out what they died for. Franco met her eyes, and something shifted between them. Not trust. Not yet. But the beginning of it. Together, he said. Emily nodded. Together. The countryside villa sat 2 hours outside Chicago, hidden behind iron gates and ancient oak trees that had witnessed generations of Ricci secrets. Emily watched it appear through the car window like something from another era. Stone walls softened by ivy, terracotta roof tiles, gardens that sprawled toward distant hills. My grandfather built it in the 1950s, Franco said from beside her. He wanted somewhere that felt like the old country. Somewhere safe. Safe. The word felt fragile as spun glass. Signora Ricci had arrived an hour earlier in a separate car with 2 of Franco's security team. She met them at the entrance, her face lighting up when she saw Emily. Oh good, you brought her, she signed, pulling Emily into an embrace that smelled of lavender and expensive perfume. I was worried you'd be stubborn about this. I'm still not entirely sure this is necessary, Emily signed back. Humor an old woman, then. Signora Ricci linked her arm through Emily's. Come, I'll show you the gardens. Franco's grandfather planted lemon trees. They remind me of home. Franco watched them walk away, something unreadable crossing his face before he turned to speak with his security detail. His voice broke. My sister died trying to expose him, and I was too young, too blind, too loyal to see what was happening. You were 19. I was old enough to ask questions, old enough to notice. He shook his head. But I worshipped him. Thought he was building an empire, not a graveyard. Emily understood that guilt. She'd spent years wondering if she could have saved her father by being smarter, quieter, less of a burden. Survivor's guilt tasted the same in every language. We can't change what they did, she said. But we can stop Marco from using it to hurt more people. Franco looked at her like she'd said something profound instead of obvious. You're braver than you think you are. I'm terrified. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. He stepped closer, and Emily's pulse kicked up. It's moving forward despite it. They stood too close, the library too intimate, the weight of everything unspoken pressing between them. Emily saw the moment Franco became aware of it too. The way his breath changed, how his eyes dropped to her lips before dragging back up. Emily. His phone shattered the moment, buzzing violently against the wooden table. Franco grabbed it, his expression shifting from vulnerable to controlled in a heartbeat. Yes. Emily watched his face go stone. When? A pause. How long do we have? Another pause, longer this time. Secure the perimeter. No one in or out without my authorization. He ended the call and looked at Emily with eyes gone cold and sharp. Marco knows we're here. Emily's blood turned to ice. How? Someone talked. Someone always talks. Franco was already moving, pulling out his phone again, typing rapid messages. We have maybe 2 hours before he arrives with enough men to make this a bloodbath. Your mother is being moved to the safe room as we speak. He grabbed Emily's arm, not roughly but urgently. You need to listen very carefully. There's a tunnel beneath the villa. It leads to a cottage half a mile away. My driver will take you from there to a secure location. What about you? I'll handle Marco. That's not an answer. Emily pulled her arm free. If you're staying, I'm staying. Emily, this isn't a negotiation. You're right. It's not. She held his gaze. Because I'm not running while you play hero. Not after everything you just said about your father's legacy. You don't get to sacrifice yourself for redemption and call it noble. Something fierce flashed in Franco's eyes. Respect or frustration, Emily couldn't tell which. Stubborn, he muttered. Brave, she corrected, throwing his words back at him. Despite everything, Franco's lips quirked. Almost a smile. Both. His phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and his expression went grim. He's closer than we thought. 40 minutes, maybe less. Emily's hands clenched into fists to stop their trembling. Then we'd better get ready. Franco looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes. Then he nodded. Stay close to me, he said. And Emily? If I tell you to run, you run. Understand? She didn't answer because they both knew she was lying if she agreed. Somewhere in the distance, Emily heard the first rumble of approaching vehicles. The past was coming to collect its debts. And she and Franco were all that stood between Marco Vanetti and the truth that had already cost too many lives. They didn't wait for Marco to arrive. Franco's security team created a diversion at the villa's main gate while he led Emily and his mother through the tunnel he'd mentioned, a narrow passage that smelled of damp earth and old secrets. They emerged in a stone cottage hidden by overgrown hedges, where 2 cars waited with engines running. Where are we going? Emily asked as Franco helped his mother into the first vehicle. Somewhere Marco won't expect. His jaw was set, eyes scanning the darkness. Somewhere I should have thought of from the beginning. The drive back to Chicago felt longer than 2 hours. Emily sat in the back with Signora Ricci, who seemed remarkably calm for someone fleeing armed men. The older woman's hands moved in the dim light from passing street lamps. You're wondering how I can be so peaceful, she signed. Emily nodded. Because I've been preparing for this night for 24 years. Signora Ricci's smile was sad but steady. Since the day they took my daughter from me and told me it was an accident. I knew then that truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you bury it. You knew what really happened to Lucia. A mother always knows. Her hands trembled slightly. But knowing and proving are different things. I've been waiting for someone brave enough to help me prove it. Emily glanced toward Franco in the passenger seat, his profile sharp against the city lights beginning to appear on the horizon. He doesn't know you know, Emily signed. He's spent 5 years trying to protect me from the truth. Let him believe he's succeeding. Signora Ricci patted Emily's hand. Men need to feel useful, even when women are the ones holding everything together. The townhouse was in Lincoln Park, sandwiched between brownstones that had probably housed Chicago families for generations. Nondescript, elegant, forgettable, the perfect hiding place. Franco's remaining security team swept the building while Emily helped Signora Ricci inside. The interior was furnished but impersonal, like a property kept for emergencies but never lived in. Safe house, Franco explained, locking the door behind them. Bought under a shell company 5 years ago. Marco doesn't know it exists. You're sure? Emily asked. I'm not sure of anything anymore. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then powered it down completely. But it's the best option we have. They gathered in the living room, Emily, Franco, his mother, and 2 security guards whose names Emily hadn't caught. Franco spread papers across the coffee table, photographs, documents, copies of Lucia's research. She was close to something, he said, pointing to a series of dates circled in red. These meetings, they line up with major Marconi operations. Drug shipments, money laundering, contract killings. His fingers stopped on one entry. And this, 2 weeks before she died. Emily leaned forward. The entry was in Italian, but she recognized the words. Il bambino è la prova. La verità è nascosta con il guardiano. The child is the proof, she translated slowly. The truth is hidden with the guardian. Franco's expression darkened. She knew. Even then, she knew you were the evidence that could destroy them. Signora Ricci's hands moved sharply, getting their attention. Keep reading. There's more. Emily flipped through pages of Lucia's journal, studying the cramped handwriting, the margin notes in multiple languages. Then she found it, an entry from 3 days before Lucia's death. If anything happens, the child's guardian will hide the flash drive under the altar of St. Agnes. Daniel knows where. He'll protect her and the truth, even if it costs him everything. God forgive me for what I've asked of him. Emily's hands went numb. St. Agnes, Franco said quietly. The church in Little Italy. It's been closed for years, structural damage, funding issues. He looked at Emily. Did your father ever mention it? Emily thought back, searching through memories that felt like looking through fog. Then something surfaced. Her father taking her to a church when she was young, maybe 7 or 8. She'd been bored, playing with her doll while he knelt before the altar for what felt like hours. He took me there once, she whispered. I didn't understand why. We weren't religious. Franco was already standing. Then that's where we go. St. Agnes stood dark and hollow at 2 a.m., its Gothic facade crumbling at the edges. Chain-link fencing surrounded the property, warning signs promising prosecution for trespassing. Franco cut through the fence with bolt cutters like he'd done it 100 times before. Maybe he had. Stay close, he told Emily, then signed the same to his mother, who'd insisted on coming despite his protests. They entered through a side door, its lock long since broken by vandals or the homeless seeking shelter. Inside, the church felt cavernous, moonlight streaming through broken stained glass to paint the floor in fragments of colored light. Emily's footsteps echoed on cracked marble as they moved toward the altar. The space smelled of decay and pigeon droppings, nothing like the sacred place she vaguely remembered. The altar's probably sealed, Franco said, examining the structure. Stone, built into the foundation. We'll need. No. Emily knelt, running her hands along the base. Her father had taught her to see what others missed, to feel for inconsistencies. There, a slight gap between 2 stones. She pressed, and something clicked. A small compartment opened, hidden for over a decade. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, a flash drive and a folded letter. Emily's hands shook as she unfolded the paper. Her father's handwriting. My dearest Emily, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you the way I wanted to. The flash drive contains everything Lucia recorded. Every meeting, every deal, every murder your mother and I witnessed while working for the Ricci family. We thought we were helping legitimate business. By the time we understood what we were really documenting, it was too late to walk away. Lucia died trying to expose them. I hid you to keep you safe. The man who helps you find this, trust him. He's not his father. Love always, Dad. Emily couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the roaring in her ears. Franco took the flash drive carefully, like it might explode. We need to leave. Now. Touching, really. The voice came from the shadows near the entrance. Emily's blood turned to ice as a man stepped into the moonlight. Late 30s, expensive suit, smile that promised violence. Behind him, 3 others spread out, blocking the exits. But it was the man beside him that made Franco go rigid. Rico, he said, voice flat. You piece of shit. Rico, Franco's right-hand man, the one who'd driven them to the villa, had the decency to look uncomfortable. It's just business, Franco. Nothing personal. Nothing personal? Franco's voice dropped to something lethal. I trusted you. Yeah, well. Rico shrugged. Marco pays better. And he's building something real, not trying to pretend the Ricci name was ever anything but blood money. The first man, Marco Vanetti, Emily realized, stepped closer. The flash drive, Franco. And the girl. Hand them over, and your mother lives. Simple transaction. Franco shifted, putting himself between Marco and Emily. You're not touching either of them. You don't have a choice. Marco gestured, and his men drew weapons. Your security team is dead. Your safe house is compromised. You've got nowhere left to run. I'm not running. Franco's voice was ice. Not anymore. Everything happened at once. Franco drew his weapon faster than Emily could track. Marco's men fired. The church erupted in gunfire and chaos, sound amplifying in the vaulted space until Emily couldn't tell which shots came from where. Franco grabbed Emily's arm, pulling her behind the altar. Get my mother out. The side door. Emily saw Signora Ricci frozen near a pillar, hands over her ears, eyes wide with terror. She ran. Didn't think, just moved, keeping low as bullets chipped stone and shattered the few remaining intact windows. She reached Signora Ricci, grabbed her hand, started pulling her toward the exit. Then she saw it. One of Marco's men, gun raised, aimed not at Franco but at the older woman's back. The anger in his eyes said this wasn't about business anymore. This was revenge. Emily didn't hesitate. She threw herself at Signora Ricci, knocking them both sideways as the bullet passed through the space where the older woman's heart had been a second before. They hit the floor hard. Emily felt the impact reverberate through her bones, heard Signora Ricci's sharp exhale. But they were alive. They were. Franco was there suddenly, weapon raised, firing 3 precise shots. The gunman dropped. Go! Franco shouted. Now! Emily hauled Signora Ricci up, half carrying her toward the side exit. Behind them, more gunfire. A scream, Rico's voice cut short. Then silence, terrible and complete. They burst through the door into the cold night air. Emily kept moving, getting Signora Ricci to the car they'd left 2 blocks away, hands shaking so badly she could barely open the door. Franco, the older woman, signed frantically. He's coming. Emily signed back, praying it was true. He's coming. Minutes passed like hours. Emily watched the church entrance, willing Franco to appear. Then he did, emerging from the darkness, limping slightly, blood on his jacket sleeve. His face was a mask of controlled fury and exhaustion. He slid into the driver's seat, started the engine without a word. Rico? Emily asked quietly. Dead, along with 2 of Marco's men. Franco's jaw clenched. Marco got away, vanished like the coward he is. The villa felt like stepping into a different world. High ceilings, hand-painted tiles, furniture that had probably been in the family for decades. Emily's guest room overlooked the gardens, with French doors that opened onto a small balcony. You'll be comfortable here, Signora Ricci signed, smoothing the coverlet on the bed. And safe. Franco is very good at keeping people safe. She paused, her hands moving more slowly. Even when he blames himself for putting them in danger in the first place. Emily studied the older woman's face. You know what's happening, don't you? Why we're really here. I know my son carries ghosts. Signora Ricci's hands were graceful, deliberate. And I know you remind me of my daughter in ways that make my heart ache. She touched Emily's cheek gently. But I also know that some things are meant to be discovered, even when they hurt. Before Emily could respond, Signora Ricci smiled and signed. Come, let me teach you something Lucia would have loved. They spent the afternoon in the garden pavilion, a small structure with open sides and climbing roses that filled the air with perfume. Signora Ricci produced a leather-bound notebook, its pages filled with hand-drawn diagrams of signs. These are old, she signed, opening to a page marked with a faded ribbon. Before standardized sign language, Each region in Italy had its own dialect. Within those dialects, families had private signs, ways to communicate secrets in plain sight. Emily leaned forward, fascinated despite the situation. The drawings showed subtle variations of common signs, a slight change in hand position, a different facial expression, an added movement that transformed meaning. This one, Signora Ricci demonstrated, her hands moving through what looked like the standard sign for family, but with a small twist at the end. It means blood oath in the old way. And this, another sign, seemingly innocuous, means hidden truth. Why are you showing me this? Because knowledge is armor, dear girl. The older woman's eyes held depths Emily hadn't noticed before. And because I think you'll need it. They worked through the notebook page by page. Emily's hands cramped from practicing the subtle variations, but she pushed through, muscle memory absorbing each new sign. During afternoon tea on the terrace, Signora Ricci poured with steady hands and signed casually. My daughter kept many secrets. Some to protect my son. Some to protect herself. She paused, her next signs deliberately slow. And some to protect a child. Emily's cup froze halfway to her lips. Signora Ricci continued, her face serene but her hands carrying weight. Your father didn't die for money. He died to protect a child. The words hung in the air like smoke. Emily set down her cup carefully. What child? But Signora Ricci was already rising, signing something about checking on dinner preparations, leaving Emily alone with the implications settling over her like cold water. A child, protected at the cost of her father's life. Emily thought about the photograph, Lucia holding a baby with her initials on the back. About her mother's words, he died protecting you. She'd always assumed her mother meant protecting her from the men who'd killed him, keeping Emily away from the violence. But what if it was more than that? What if Emily herself was the evidence? The living proof of something the Marconis couldn't allow to exist? Night fell over the villa like a velvet curtain. Emily found Franco in the library, nursing whiskey and staring at a chessboard set up on a side table. Do you play? He asked without looking up. My father taught me. Emily moved to the window, watching security lights sweep the grounds. Is this how you live? Always watching for threats? For the last 5 years, yes. Franco finally looked at her, and in the lamplight his face showed the exhaustion he usually kept hidden. Since I learned what my father really was. What he'd done. He took a drink. I thought if I dismantled everything, cut every dirty tie, maybe I could erase it. Make the Ricci name mean something clean. But you can't erase the past. No. His voice went quiet. The past has a way of collecting debts. Emily turned from the window. Your mother said something today. About my father dying to protect a child. Franco's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Sit down, Emily. She did, perching on the edge of a leather armchair that had probably cost more than her old car. My father's former lieutenant, Marco Vanetti, he's been trying to resurrect the old organization, Franco began. The Marconi family fell apart after some internal war. Marco saw opportunity. He's been consolidating power, calling in old favors, trying to rebuild what I spent years destroying. What does that have to do with me? Everything. Franco leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Because your existence, your connection to Lucia, to the evidence your father gathered, it proves the Ricci family's old crimes. Marco's been using my father's legacy to legitimize his operation. If proof emerges that it was all built on murder and corruption, his entire house of cards collapses. Emily's chest tightened. So I'm not just a witness. I'm evidence. You're living proof that my father had Lucia killed to cover up a Marconi deal. That he ordered your father's execution to silence an interpreter who knew too much. Franco's voice cracked slightly. And Marco will do anything to make sure that proof doesn't surface. The room felt too small suddenly, the air too thick. Your mother knows all this, doesn't she? Emily said. The secret signs, the warnings. My mother knows more than she's ever told me. She survived my father's world by being underestimated. Franco stood, paced to the window. But she loved Lucia. And I think she knows what really happened to her. She's been waiting 24 years to tell someone. Emily watched his reflection in the dark glass. Strong shoulders carrying impossible weight. Hands that could sign with gentleness or violence, depending on what the moment required. "You feel responsible," she said quietly. "For all of it. Wouldn't you?" He didn't turn around. "Everything my father destroyed, everyone he hurt, it's in my blood. His legacy is my inheritance whether I want it or not." "That's not how inheritance works." Emily stood, moved closer. "You don't get blamed for his choices. You don't carry his sins. Don't I?" Franco finally turned, and the anguish in his face stopped her breath. "You're here because of what he did. Your father's dead because of what he did. Lucia." They drove in silence, winding through empty streets. Signora Ricci sat in the back, hands clasped in her lap, eyes closed. Whether in prayer or shock, Emily couldn't tell. Finally, Franco pulled into an underground parking garage, killed the engine, and sat perfectly still. "You saved her," he said finally, not looking at Emily. "Again. So did you. I brought her into this. You kept her alive despite me." He turned then, and the gratitude in his eyes was almost painful to witness. "Thank you." Emily wanted to say it was nothing, just instinct, but that would diminish what had happened. So she just nodded. Franco's hand found hers, squeezed once, then released. The touch was brief but carried weight. Signora Ricci's hands moved from the back seat. "Do we have it?" "The evidence." Franco pulled the flash drive from his pocket, held it up to catch the dim light. "We have it. Then what are we waiting for?" The older woman's eyes blazed with something fierce. "Let's end this. For Lucia. For Daniel. For all of them." Franco looked at Emily. "She's right. No more running. No more hiding." His voice went cold, determined, edged with rage he'd kept leashed too long. "We finish this. We expose Marco, the Marconis, everyone who built their empires on murder." Emily thought about her father, about Lucia, about all the people who died protecting the truth in her hands. "How?" she asked. Franco's smile was sharp as broken glass. "I know exactly how. But you're not going to like it." Emily met his eyes. "Try me." In the darkness of the parking garage, with her father's final gift clutched in Franco's hand, Emily Shaw made a choice. No more running. No more hiding. Whatever came next, she'd face it standing. The way her father would have wanted. The loft was in a converted warehouse in the West Loop, accessible only by a freight elevator that required 2 keys and a security code. Franco had called it his last resort, a place even his closest associates didn't know existed. Emily stood at the industrial windows overlooking the city as dawn broke, painting the skyline in shades of copper and gold. Behind her, Signora Ricci slept on the single bed, exhaustion finally claiming her. Franco was on the phone in hushed tones, coordinating something Emily didn't have the energy to ask about. The flash drive sat on the table like a grenade with the pin pulled. "Coffee." Franco appeared at her elbow, 2 mugs in hand. Emily took one gratefully. "Thank you." They stood in silence, watching the city wake. Somewhere down there, Marco was planning his next move. Somewhere, people were going about ordinary lives, unaware that the evidence to topple a criminal empire was sitting in a warehouse loft. "I need to watch them," Emily said finally. "The videos. Whatever my father recorded." Franco nodded slowly. "I'll set up the laptop." "But Emily," he paused. "Some things, once you see them, you can't unsee. I've been running from ghosts my whole life." She met his eyes. "It's time I faced them." The first video was dated March 2001. Her father's face filled the screen, younger than Emily remembered, with the same gentle eyes and careful hands. He signed as he spoke, his voice translated by subtitles Lucia must have added. Recording number 1. Conference meeting, Ricci Marconi distribution deal. Naples. The camera panned to show a conference room. Emily recognized Franco's father from photographs, distinguished, cold-eyed, commanding. Beside him sat men in expensive suits, their faces hard with the kind of authority that came from violence. Her father interpreted while they spoke. Business language masking ugly truths. Shipment routes that meant drug trafficking, distribution networks that meant organized crime, contract negotiations that meant murder for hire. Emily watched video after video, her father's steady presence in each one, translating words that would eventually cost him his life. Then Lucia appeared on screen. She was beautiful, dark hair, Franco's eyes, a smile that held both warmth and fierce intelligence. She signed to the camera. "These recordings will be enough. Daniel and I have documented everything. Once we turn this over to the authorities, both families will fall. The children will be safe." The children. Plural. Emily's chest tightened. The next video showed Lucia holding a baby. Emily recognized herself from the photograph, wrapped in that same yellow blanket. "This is Emily Shaw." Lucia signed to the camera, her face radiant. "Daniel's daughter. My goddaughter. She's 6 months old today, and she's perfect." Her expression turned serious. "If anything happens to me, if they find out what we're doing, Daniel will take her and disappear. He's promised. She'll grow up safe, away from all this blood money and corruption." Franco stood behind Emily now. She felt him there, silent, witnessing his sister's ghost. "She loved you," Emily whispered. "She loved everyone too much." His voice cracked. "It got her killed." The final video was dated 2 weeks before Lucia's death. Her father appeared on screen, signing urgently. "They know. Franco's father knows about the recordings. Lucia's been compromised. I'm taking Emily and leaving tonight. If anyone finds this, if my daughter finds this, know that we tried. We tried to do the right thing." The screen went black. Emily sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. Beside her, Franco's shoulders shook with silent grief. "I'm sorry," he finally said, voice raw. "God, Emily, I'm so sorry. You didn't. My father ordered their deaths. My blood. My name." He turned to face her, and Emily saw tears cutting tracks down his face. "Everything you've suffered, everyone you've lost, it's because of what he built. What I inherited. Franco, let me say this." He knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. "I can't undo what he did. I can't bring them back. But I swear to you," his voice broke, "I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making it right. Destroying what he built. Exposing every lie, every crime, every—" Emily pressed her fingers to his lips, stopping the words. "You're not your father," she said firmly. "You're not responsible for his sins. You've spent 5 years trying to dismantle his empire. You've protected me. Her own voice cracked. "You've given me answers I've needed for 12 years. Franco's hands came up to cup her face, thumbs brushing away tears. "You're extraordinary. You know that. I'm terrified." "This is Emily Shaw." Lucia signed to the camera, her face radiant. "Daniel's daughter. My goddaughter. She's 6 months old today, and she's perfect." Her expression turned serious. "If anything happens to me, if they find out what we're doing, Daniel will take her and disappear. He's promised. She'll grow up safe, away from all this blood money and corruption." Franco stood behind Emily now. She felt him there, silent, witnessing his sister's ghost. "She loved you," Emily whispered. "She loved everyone too much." His voice cracked. "It got her killed." The final video was dated 2 weeks before Lucia's death. Her father appeared on screen, signing urgently. "They know. Franco's father knows about the recordings. Lucia's been compromised. I'm taking Emily and leaving tonight. If anyone finds this, if my daughter finds this, know that we tried. We tried to do the right thing." The screen went black. Emily sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. Beside her, Franco's shoulders shook with silent grief. "I'm sorry," he finally said, voice raw. "God, Emily, I'm so sorry. You didn't. My father ordered their deaths. My blood. My name." He turned to face her, and Emily saw tears cutting tracks down his face. "Everything you've suffered, everyone you've lost, it's because of what he built. What I inherited. Franco, let me say this." He knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. "I can't undo what he did. I can't bring them back. But I swear to you," His voice broke. I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making it right. Destroying what he built. Exposing every lie, every crime, every. Emily pressed her fingers to his lips, stopping the words. You're not your father, she said firmly. You're not responsible for his sins. You've spent 5 years trying to dismantle his empire. You've protected me. Her own voice cracked. You've given me answers I've needed for 12 years. Franco's hands came up to cup her face, thumbs brushing away tears. You're extraordinary. You know that. I'm terrified. That's what makes you brave. He leaned forward until their foreheads touched. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but... Emily kissed him. Soft at first, tentative, a question more than an answer. But Franco responded with gentle intensity, one hand sliding into her hair, the other pulling her closer. The kiss tasted like grief and coffee, and something that felt like hope breaking through concrete. When they finally parted, both breathing hard, Franco signed with one hand, fingers moving against her cheek. Forgive. Emily signed back. Already done. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Emily let herself sink into it. Let herself feel something other than fear for the first time in days. This man who'd inherited a nightmare and spent years trying to wake from it. This man who looked at her like she was worth protecting even when it cost him everything. A throat clearing made them break apart. Signora Ricci stood by the bed, hands moving with a knowing smile. About time. Emily felt heat flood her face, but Franco just laughed, genuine and surprised, like he'd forgotten how. His mother crossed to them, her expression turning serious. What's the plan? Franco stood, pulling Emily up with him, their hands still intertwined. We leak the files. Anonymously. Send copies to the FBI, the state attorney, every major news outlet. Bury Marco and the Marconis under so much evidence they'll spend the rest of their lives in federal prison. And you, his mother signed. Your father is in those videos. Good. Franco's jaw set. His crimes die with his reputation. That's how it should have been from the start. Signora Ricci studied them both for a long moment, then signed slowly. Peace costs blood. Are you both sure it's worth the price? Emily thought about her father, about Lucia, about all the people who'd already paid that price. Yes, she said. Franco squeezed her hand. We're sure. His mother nodded, proud but sad. Then do it. End this. For all of them. They spent the next 3 hours preparing. Franco uploaded the videos to encrypted servers, created anonymous email accounts, drafted messages that couldn't be traced back to them. Emily helped organize the files, adding context where needed, ensuring nothing could be misinterpreted. It felt like preparing for war. Quiet, methodical, inevitable. Franco was finalizing the distribution list when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, then his face went pale. What? Emily asked. He turned the phone toward her. Security footage from one of his properties, a warehouse across town. The timestamp read 40 minutes ago. On screen, Marco's men forcing someone into a car. Someone Emily recognized from the villa. One of Franco's security team who'd helped them escape. Marcus, Franco said tightly. He's been with my family for 15 years. Another text arrived. This one was a photo of Marcus, bound and bloodied, in what looked like an empty warehouse. Below it, you have 6 hours. The flash drive and the girl, or he dies. Then I start on your other people. Emily's blood turned to ice. He's baiting you. I know. Franco's hands clenched into fists. But Marcus has a wife. 3 kids. He's loyal, Anne. And we can't let them die because of us, Emily finished. Signora Ricci's hands moved sharply. It's a trap. Marco wants you angry, wants you to make mistakes. I won't make mistakes. Franco's voice went cold, calculating. But I'm also not letting an innocent man die for my father's sins. He looked at Emily. We release the files now. All of them. Flood every channel simultaneously. By the time we meet Marco, the FBI will already be moving. And then what? Emily asked. Franco's smile was sharp and dangerous. Then we show Marco Vannetti exactly why he should have stayed in the shadows. He picked up his phone, fingers moving with purpose. We've got 6 hours. Let's make them count. Emily watched him work, watched the transformation from the man who'd kissed her gently to the man who'd inherited an empire and learned how to wield it. Both were Franco. Both were real. And both were about to walk into a trap. But this time, they weren't going in blind. This time, they had evidence, allies, and something Marco didn't expect. They had each other. Franco looked up, met her eyes. Ready. Emily took a breath, thought about her father's courage, about Lucia's determination, about the 12 years she'd spent running from a truth that had finally found her. Ready, she said. The countdown had begun. And when it ended, one way or another, the Ricci family's ghosts would finally rest. The industrial docks sprawled along Lake Michigan like abandoned monuments to Chicago's manufacturing past. Shipping containers stacked in rusting towers, cranes frozen mid-reach against the night sky, water lapping at concrete pilings with rhythmic indifference. Franco stood at the designated meeting point, Pier 47, beneath a broken streetlight that cast everything in shadow. Emily watched from behind a container 30 yards away, phone in hand, recording everything. Her other hand trembled as she held it steady. In the loft across the city, Signora Ricci watched the live feed on Franco's laptop, seeing everything Emily saw through the camera. The plan was insane, dangerous, probably suicidal. It was also their only shot. He's coming. Franco's voice crackled through the earpiece Emily wore. Stay hidden. No matter what happens, stay hidden until I signal. Emily didn't respond, couldn't risk even a whisper, but her heart hammered against her ribs. 3 black SUVs rolled into view, headlights cutting through the darkness. They stopped in a semicircle, engines idling, doors opening with military precision. Marco Vannetti emerged from the center vehicle, flanked by 6 armed men. He looked exactly as he had in the church, expensive suit, predator's smile, eyes that promised violence. Franco. His voice carried across the empty dock. Punctual as always. That's what I always liked about you. Professional, even when you're about to die. Franco didn't move. Where's Marcus? Alive. For now. Marco gestured, and 2 of his men dragged Marcus from one of the SUVs. The security guard was bloodied, limping, but conscious. See? I keep my word. Now, the flash drive and the girl. That was the deal. Let him go first. Marco laughed. You think I'm stupid? Drive first, then he walks. Then maybe, I let you leave with your life. We both know that's a lie. Yeah. Marco's smile widened. We do, but it's polite to pretend. Emily's finger hovered over the record button on her phone. Franco had explained it carefully. Marco's ego would be his downfall. Let him talk. Let him confess. Let him think he'd won before pulling the trap. Franco pulled the flash drive from his pocket, held it up so the headlights caught it. Everything's here. My father's crimes. The Marconi deals. Your involvement in the cartel shipments. All of it. Good. Marco stepped closer. Been looking for that for a long time. Your sister was a problem, Shaw's interpreter was a problem, and now you're a problem. Family tradition, I guess. Ricci's never could mind their own business. My father knew what you were, Franco said quietly. Before he died, he told me you'd try to rebuild what he'd torn down. Your father was weak. Marco's voice dripped contempt. He built an empire, then got a conscience. Started talking about going legitimate and protecting the family name. He spat. Family name was built on blood. Can't wash that off with charity galas and good PR. Emily's hands moved, signing Marco's words for the camera. Across the city, Signora Ricci would be watching, understanding, witnessing. You killed Lucia, Franco said. Not a question. Your father ordered it. I just made it look like a kidnapping gone wrong. Marco shrugged. She was going to expose everything. Your old man couldn't have that. Bad for business. And Daniel Shaw? That deaf interpreter? Waited 12 years, but yeah. He surfaced in Chicago, started asking questions. Marconi family took care of it. Marco's smile turned cruel. Made it look random. Cops didn't even bother investigating. Just another dead nobody in a city full of them. Emily's vision blurred with tears, but she kept recording. Kept signing. This was for her father. For Lucia. For everyone Marco and his kind had destroyed. And now you want to finish it, Franco said. Kill me, kill Emily, erase the evidence. Not just you. Marco's voice went colder. Your mother too. Can't have any Ricci's left to make trouble. And that deaf bitch knows too much anyway. Always did. Your father should have gotten rid of her years ago. Something snapped inside Emily. She stepped out from behind the container, phone raised, still recording. Emily, no. Franco's voice sharp with panic. But Emily was done hiding. Done running. Done letting men like Marco treat lives like business transactions. Her hands moved in deliberate, clear sign language, her voice strong as she spoke each word aloud while signing. Marco Vanetti just confessed to murdering Lucia Ricci. Her hands flew through the signs. To ordering Daniel Shaw's execution. More signs, precise, damning. To conspiracy with the Marconi cartel. She stepped closer, fearless now. And to planning the murder of Franco Ricci and his mother. Marco's face went purple with rage. You stupid. Every word you said? Emily continued signing, making sure the camera caught everything. Signora Ricci just watched you say it. She understood every confession, every threat, every lie. She lowered her phone slightly, meeting Marco's eyes. You wanted to erase the truth? You just broadcast it. For 1 second, Marco stood frozen. Then his hand went for his gun. Franco moved faster. The shot caught Marco in the shoulder, spinning him backward. His men opened fire immediately, muzzle flashes lighting the dock like strobe lights. Franco was already moving, grabbing Emily, pulling her back toward the containers. Run! Emily ran, but Franco was suddenly stumbling. She caught him, felt warmth spreading across her hands. Blood. Franco! Keep moving. He shoved her toward cover. The files uploaded 10 minutes ago. FBI's already. Another shot. Franco's body jerked, and he went down hard. Emily screamed. Dropped beside him, hands pressing against the wound in his side. Blood pulsed between her fingers, hot and terrifying. Around them, gunfire erupted. Franco's team, hidden in positions Emily hadn't even known about, emerged from shadows. The fight turned chaos, bullets ricocheting off metal, shouts and screams echoing across water. Stay with me, Emily whispered, pressing harder. Franco, stay with me. His eyes were unfocused, skin going pale. Did we get him? I don't know. I don't care. Just breathe. Please. More gunfire. Emily hunched over Franco, trying to shield him, her hands slick with his blood. She'd watched medical shows, knew pressure was important, but there was so much blood. Emily. Franco's hand found hers, grip weak. Thank you. Don't. Tears streamed down her face. Don't you dare say goodbye. Not goodbye. He coughed, wincing. Just thank you. For seeing me. Not my father. Me. I see you. And you're not dying. Do you hear me? You're not. A figure appeared above them. One of Franco's men, Dante, face grim. We need to move him. Now. He lifted Franco with practiced efficiency while Emily kept pressure on the wound. They carried him toward a black van that had appeared from nowhere, its back doors open. Behind them, the gunfire stopped. Emily looked back once. Saw bodies on the ground. Saw Marco's men being restrained by Franco's team. Saw the empty space near the water's edge where Marco had been standing. He was gone. Fallen into the dark water. Fled. Dead. She didn't know. Couldn't think past the man bleeding out beside her. They loaded Franco into the van. A paramedic, another of his people, immediately took over, cutting away Franco's shirt, applying real pressure, hooking up in 4. Hospital? Emily asked. Private clinic, Dante said, climbing into the driver's seat. Can't risk questions right now. The van lurched forward. Emily held Franco's hand, watching his chest rise and fall with shallow breaths. Stay with me, she whispered again. Please, stay with me. His fingers tightened slightly around hers. It was enough. The clinic was in a brownstone that looked like any other residential building. Inside, it was state-of-the-art medical equipment operated by people who'd learned not to ask questions. They took Franco immediately, leaving Emily in a waiting room that smelled of antiseptic and old fear. She sat with Franco's blood drying on her hands, replaying everything. Marco's confession, the gunfire, Franco falling, the weight of his body as they'd carried him. The phone in her pocket buzzed. Signora Ricci, is he alive? Emily typed back, surgery. I don't know yet. 3 dots appeared then. You were brave. Lucia would be proud. Emily stared at the words until they blurred. An hour passed. Then 2. Dawn crept through the windows, painting everything gray and uncertain. Finally, a doctor emerged. Young woman, tired eyes, blood on her scrubs. He's stable, she said. Bullet missed major organs, but he lost a lot of blood. Next 24 hours are critical. Can I see him? The doctor hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. Franco lay in a private room, connected to machines that beeped steadily. His skin was still too pale, but his chest rose and fell with more strength than before. Emily pulled a chair to his bedside, took his hand carefully. The files went public, she said quietly, not sure if he could hear. FBI raided the Marconi properties an hour ago. News is calling it the biggest organized crime bust in Chicago history. She squeezed his hand gently. You did it. You brought them down. His eyes fluttered but didn't open. Marco got away, she continued. But they'll find him. And even if they don't, he's finished. No credibility, no allies, nowhere to hide. Still no response. Emily leaned forward, resting her forehead against their joined hands. So you have to wake up. Because I didn't survive all this just to lose you now. The machines beeped steadily. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the war that had just ended in the shadows. Emily sat vigil, holding the hand of a man who'd inherited his father's sins and spent 5 years trying to burn them away. And she waited for him to come back to her. 6 weeks later, autumn had surrendered to early winter. The countryside villa looked different in daylight, without the shadow of fear hanging over it. The gardens had gone dormant, but someone, Signora Ricci probably, had planted winter pansies that added splashes of purple and gold against the frost. Emily stood on the terrace, watching construction crews work on the new building rising beside the main house. The Lucia project, the sign would read when it was finished. A school for the deaf. A sanctuary for those escaping organized crime. A living memorial to everyone who'd paid the price for truth. You're supposed to be resting. Franco's voice came from behind her. Emily turned to find him standing in the doorway, still moving carefully, one hand pressed to his side where the bullet had torn through. 6 weeks of healing had brought color back to his face, strength back to his body, but the scar would remain. A permanent reminder of the night everything had ended and begun. So are you, she countered. I got bored. He crossed to her slowly, and Emily resisted the urge to help him. He'd made it clear weeks ago that he needed to heal on his own terms. The physical therapist says I'm being stubbornly resistant to proper recovery protocols. Shocking. Franco's laugh was soft. Marco's body washed up yesterday. Chicago PD identified him this morning. Emily had known it was coming. The news reports had been speculating for weeks, but hearing it confirmed still sent a chill through her. How do you feel? Relieved. Guilty for feeling relieved. He leaned against the terrace railing. He was my father's best friend once. Before everything got twisted, he made his choices. We all did. Franco's gaze drifted to the construction site. Strange, isn't it? How quickly empires fall. My father spent 40 years building his legacy. I tore it down in 6 weeks. You redirected it, Emily corrected. There's a difference. The Ricci fortune, what was left after federal seizures and legal fees, had been restructured entirely. Legitimate businesses remained legitimate. Everything else had been liquidated, the money flowing into the Lucia project and similar foundations. The Ricci name would mean something different now. Something clean. Mama wants you to run the education programs, Franco said. Full-time, once the building's complete. Good salary, benefits, the whole thing. Emily had expected the offer. Had been preparing her answer for weeks. I'm not qualified. You're the most qualified person I know. Franco turned to face her fully. You understand silence. You understand fear. You understand what it means to hide who you are just to survive. His hand found hers. That's exactly who should be running programs for people trying to rebuild their lives. Emily looked at their joined hands, remembering the first night in the restaurant when he'd been nothing but danger and mystery. So much had changed. So much had stayed exactly the same. Okay, she said. Yes, I'll do it. Franco's smile was genuine, reaching his eyes in a way it hadn't 6 weeks ago. Good. Mama will be insufferable about being right. 2 days later, Emily stood at her father's grave for the first time since the funeral 12 years ago. The cemetery was quiet, covered in a thin layer of snow that made everything look peaceful. Daniel Shaw, the headstone read, Beloved Father, rest in peace. Franco stood beside her, a silent presence offering support without words. Emily knelt, brushing snow from the base of the stone. Hi, Dad, she whispered. Sorry it took me so long. The wind moved through bare trees, carrying the sound away. I found your recordings. I know what you did, what you tried to do. Her voice cracked. You were so brave, braver than I ever knew. She pulled out the letter she'd written, hands trembling as she unfolded it. Dad, I met Lucia's brother. He's nothing like his father. He's good and kind, and he spent 5 years trying to undo the damage his family caused, including what they did to you. We exposed them. All of them. The people who killed you, who killed Lucia, who destroyed so many lives, they're gone now. Justice came slow, but it came. I'm going to teach sign language at a school named after Lucia. I'm going to help people who are scared and hiding, just like we were. I think you'd be proud of that. I'm not scared anymore, Dad. I'm not hiding. You taught me how to speak without sound, and now I'm going to teach others. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for loving me enough to die for the truth. I love you. Always. Emily Rose Shawrichi**. She placed the letter beneath a stone, the hyphenated name catching the winter light. Franco's hand settled gently on her shoulder. Shawrichi, he asked quietly. Emily stood, brushing snow from her knees. 2 broken legacies, 1 new beginning. She met his eyes. If that's okay with you. Franco's expression shifted through surprise, wonder, something that looked like hope. Emily, I'm not proposing, she said quickly, cheeks flushing. I just mean symbolically. The work we're doing. The school. It's both our families redeemed. I know what you meant. Franco pulled her close, careful of his healing ribs. And yes, it's more than okay. They stood together in the quiet cemetery, 2 people who'd inherited darkness and chosen to make light. The Lucia Project opened its doors on a crisp December morning, 3 months after the dock showdown. The building was beautiful, modern accessibility features blended with warm, welcoming design. Classrooms with perfect lighting for sign language. Common areas where students could gather without fear. Offices where social workers helped survivors navigate new lives. Signora Ricci taught the advanced sign language classes, her face radiant as she moved through familiar gestures, sharing the dialect her daughter had loved. She wore purple, Lucia's favorite color, and her hands danced with stories of the old country, the old ways, the language that had survived centuries. Emily ran the education programs, coordinating tutors, arranging job training, helping students, deaf and hearing both, find their voices in whatever form they took. On opening day, 30 students filled the main classroom. Some deaf, some hearing, all carrying stories of survival. Emily stood before them, Franco beside her, and felt something settle in her chest. Peace. Actual, genuine peace. Welcome, she signed and spoke simultaneously, to the Lucia Project. This is a place where silence is understood, not feared. Where your past doesn't define your future. Where you're safe to become whoever you're meant to be. The students watched, some signing back their gratitude, others simply smiling. Signora Ricci approached, her hands moving with pride. My daughter would have loved this. Would have loved you both. Franco signed back. We're doing this for her. For all of them. His mother's eyes shimmered. I know. That's why it matters. As the first class began, Signora Ricci teaching basic conversational signs, Franco took Emily's hand and led her to the windows overlooking the garden.